All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk, Uygur, and Kasparian with you guys. Well, obviously still a day where we have heavy hearts about what happened in Texas, and we're going to tell you some of the horrifying details, including the reaction of the police, which was absolutely abhorrent. And as usual, I'll tell you the reality of Republicans and how they profit from these deaths. And so whether you're Republican or you're in the mainstream media, you can cry about it all day long, but we have facts and you have, well, we shouldn't offend them. We should let the kids be murdered, but we shouldn't offend Republicans. No deal, and they'll have no quarter on this show. All right, Anna, go ahead.
All right. Even though there were multiple armed police officers just outside the school, Robb Elementary School, where the mass shooting occurred in Uvalde, Texas, it took them an hour to do anything about it. In fact, they were far more concerned in putting literal parents, begging them to do something in handcuffs, than they were interested in barging in and doing their jobs to save those children. So I want to start off with this video. Someone who was on the scene at the time was recording as the parents were begging the police to do something. One of the parents was tackled to the ground and pepper sprayed. It's hard to see it because the person who was filming this wasn't holding the camera steadily and all of that, but at least you get a sense of the chaotic situation. Let's take a look. They later put a mother in handcuffs because she was asking them too aggressively to go in and save her children. We'll get to those details in just a moment, but I want to give you the timeline because it's now become abundantly clear that police officials are either lying to reporters or they're withholding information, because we were also told that there was an armed resource officer who engaged with the shooter prior to the shooter going into that 4th grade classroom and barricading himself. Now they're changing their story and saying that is not the case. So which one is it, and why are we getting bad information? Let me give you a timeline based on reporting from the Washington Post. This is what shows that police did nothing for about an hour. Authorities agree that the gunman was dead by 1 p.m., but have offered conflicting accounts as to whether the attack began around 11:30 a.m. or closer to noon. By 11:43 a.m., the school announced on Facebook that it was under lockdown. Remember that time, 11:43 a.m., citing gunshots in the area. The students and staff are safe in the building, it said. Now, in public transmissions on a radio channel used by local EMS workers, someone said at 11:53 a.m. that a lieutenant had requested a response to the area of the school. As the response was discussed, one official was heard telling first responders, please just stay back. By 12:10 p.m., a Facebook live stream recorded outside the front of the school showed police cars had established a perimeter. Helicopters were flying overhead and onlookers had gathered. 7 minutes later, school authorities announced on social media there was an active shooter at Robb Elementary. Now, after hearing the shooting, authorities said a tactical team formed a stack formation and eventually breached the classroom door and killed Ramos, the shooter, in a shootout. Ramos was in the room for some time before police entered, and it was unclear whether he killed the students when he first barricaded himself or just before the police breached the room. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and it proves that they clearly had done nothing for about an hour. Shots were still being heard at 12:52 p.m., an hour later. According to radio recordings, at 1:06 p.m., Uvalde police announced on social media that the attack was over. So Cenk, we hear over and over again that we don't need to do anything to regulate guns. In fact, we just need more guns. We need more good guys with guns. to protect us from the bad guys with guns. Well, according to conservatives, there were a ton of good guys with guns just outside the school who failed to do a damn thing for an hour. For an hour. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So, first of all, another fact about the cops, they did not respond in the first 12 minutes when the shooter was outside the school. He spent 12 minutes outside the school before he'd ever gone in, and the cops weren't there. And so they have not explained why it took so long to get to an active shooter. He'd already killed his grandmother, he'd already driven to the school and hung out at the school for all that time. Or maybe, I don't know, they could explain it. Maybe they thought, oh, that's a guy with a gun. That's awesome, it's Texas, open carry. Carry anywhere you like. Oh, you're right next to the school, you might murder the kids. That's no problem. It's no problem in Texas. Oh, you killed the kids, nobody could have seen that coming. No, we all could see it coming. So stop lying. So I'm gonna get to more details of how cowardly the cops are in 1 second. They're amazing facts. But look, I've told you this before, but I'll put a saying on it. You know how there's ACAB, all cops are bastards? I don't know that that's true, and we've talked about that in the past, but I'm going with ACAC, all cops are cowards. Now, and I'll tell you why, that one is indisputable. It's not because they're born cowards, it's not that they're less courageous than the average person. No, they go into the police academy and they're taught cowardice. They're taught you are more important than the citizens. And by the way, you can just ask a cop, if they're not lying straight to your face, they will tell you that is emphasized over and over again, protect yourself first. Protect yourself first, which is the exact opposite of what we should be training them. The whole point is you're a cop that is there to protect and serve the community, and you're supposed to prioritize the citizens above your own safety. That's the whole point of a cop. It's like telling a fireman, no, don't rush into a burning building, you gotta protect yourself first. Well, then you could never do your job, right? But we accept it as normal. They say it all the time. Cops will openly say, we gotta protect ourselves first. Well, then you're a coward, and you weren't born that way. You were taught you must be a coward.
Can I jump in really quick? Because something that I've heard repeated over and over again in regard to the actions of the police in this particular school shooting is that following Columbine, the training indicates that they are not supposed to wait. So I keep hearing that from intelligence officials who do their interviews on CNN.
I don't believe them at all.
Yeah, I question that, I really do.
No, there's no way that's true.
Because it's clear to me, look, it's clear to me that they didn't feel like that was their job, that they needed to go in there immediately. You have parents begging them. Imagine being a parent, knowing that your student, knowing that your child is a student at that school. You hear the gunfire, you hear it. And the cops are standing there. By the way, they were waiting for Border Patrol to show up and help them out.
Why? There's like 1,000 of you there. We see it on video. There's like dozens of guys with massive weaponry, but they've been taught to be cowards. So they're like, what? There's gunfire in there. Yeah, there's also children in there. That's why you're supposed to go in. Oh no, but we might get a hangnail. Okay, so now let me give you more amazing facts. First of all, there's the woman, Miss Gomez. So she's the one that Anna's telling you about. So she gets handcuffed because she's complaining, my kids are in there and I'm afraid they're gonna get murdered. And they're like, well, we're not gonna bother going in there, but we will arrest you, okay? And so they handcuff her.
Yep.
And that's marshals do that, okay? Because now at this point, there's like several different departments there. And they're all cowards and none of them are going in. Except there's an important exception I'm gonna get to, okay? So, but eventually Gomez convinces one of the local cops to at least get her handcuffs off her, and she does. And you know what he does? And you know what she does? She climbs the fence on her own. She like waits for the cops to be looking somewhere else, so she can run past them. She climbs the fence, gets into the building, and gets her kids from inside the school, and then gets them out and runs out.
Yeah.
She saved her kids. She saved her kid's life. Now here's a giant question. Wait a minute, the cops are saying that the guy had barricaded himself in with the kids in one classroom. So where'd she get the kids? Did she go inside the classroom? That doesn't seem likely. So it sounds like logically there were kids in other parts of the school, and the gunman could have gone out at any time and murdered them all.
Right.
But the cops won't go in, and that mom's like, "Oh no, get the hell out of my way!" And earlier they had handcuffed her. Thank God, at least one local cop. He didn't know she was going to do that, but got her out of the handcuffs so she could save her own kids' lives. So guys, think about how dangerous this is, because now nobody's going to listen to cops in an active shooter situation. In an active shooter situation, the cops are going to say, "Don't do anything, we got this." And everybody's going to think, "No, you don't. You're all cowards. You're not going to go into the building. We all know it." So there's going to be goddamn mayhem, because they're taught to make sure that they're the most important, precious thing in the world. Screw the citizens. And guys, this is not new. In this case, they didn't protect the kids. But remember, they also shoot kids. Tamir Rice was a 12-year-old that they shot in 2 seconds. They didn't bother telling him to put down it turned out to be a toy gun that somebody complained about. They didn't bother to investigate. They just walked right up to the kid and shot him. And why? Our lives are more important. Don't bother to see if he's 12. Don't bother to see if it's a toy gun. Don't bother to see anything. Just kill, because cops are the most important thing in the world. But now get a load of this. Again, they're not born cowards, because Texas State Trooper Juan Maldonado shows up because one of his friends has a teacher inside. It turns out his wife is a teacher, his friend's, and his friend's wife died. She was one of the women who was shot. You know what? She protected the kids, and as she was protecting the kids, the gunman shot her, okay? So Maldonado is not there officially. He's there for a friend. You know what he does? Because he's not told by the cops that are there, you're not allowed to go in, okay? Otherwise we'll fire you if you're not a coward. He goes in, and he shows the cuts on his arm because he broke the window. Again, he doesn't have the equipment, he doesn't have anything. He's just like, I gotta go save my friend's wife and the kids. He breaks into the school, and you know what he did? They were able to, this is from the Wall Street Journal. Mr. Maldonado said he and the friend were able to enter the building to get the students out. It turns out the cops could have gotten tons of students out. They just literally chose not to.
Yeah, and you know, I'm gonna go to this next video because they gave us bad information in the context of an official press conference. So let's watch, and I'll tell you what they're lying about.
As he was approaching, as the governor mentioned earlier, there was a brave Consolidated Independent School District resource officer that approached him, engaged him, and at that time, gunfire was not exchanged, but the subject was able to make it into the school. As the governor reported, he went down a hallway, turned right, then turned left, and there was 2 classrooms that were adjoining, and that's where the carnage began. As he was shooting, when the shooting began, we had Uvalde police officers arrive on scene, along with the Consolidated Independent School District officers, immediately breached, because as we know in officers, every second's a life. They breached it, engaged the active shooter, and continued to keep him pinned down in that location, afterwards, until after a tactical team could be put together, comprised of Border Patrol agents on the front end, some members of their BORTAC unit, which is a SWAT team for Border Patrol. Also, there was a Uvalde County deputy that got into the stack, and 2 Uvalde police officers. They breached the classroom door, they went in, they engaged Ramos and killed him at the scene.
So that was during the official press conference just yesterday. And today, Texas DPS now says there was no school police officer who encountered or engaged the mass shooter at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. So, and by the way, I mean, he's like stammering. I should have been a little more skeptical of what that official was saying during the press conference. But nonetheless, that was a lie. Why are we getting that information? Why are we getting bad information? And more importantly, why are you leaving out, like he is sitting there doing PR on behalf of the cops who were cowardly in this situation and refused to do a damn thing for a full hour. He left that out. I think the people deserve to know why they waited an hour. They deserve to know that the cops waited an hour to begin with. We didn't find out about that until a day later. And now there are all sorts of questions about the timeline of events. And again, they are not being forthcoming. And the question is, why?
Yeah, and so no, they were not brave that day. Saying that the cops were brave on the scene is an insult to all the kids who were murdered and their family members whose hearts are broken. By the way, one of the teachers who was slain, her husband of 24 years had a heart attack today and died. And his family said he died of grief from his wife passing away in that incident. So, by the way, the teachers that protected the kids and died doing that was brave. Also remember, Republicans do war on teachers. Oh, the teachers shouldn't teach this. Oh, they're corrupting our kids. No, they're literally dying for your kids. As the cops you love so much are sitting outside having donuts. So that guy's a goddamn liar, the one you saw on tape. He's the same guy that came out today and said, oh yeah, there was nobody outside that confronted him. So then why'd you lie to us yesterday? Why did you say it so matter-of-factly? Oh yeah, there's definitely a guy who come. You know, I knew that didn't make sense yesterday. Because as soon as I heard that, I was like, wait, you're saying there was a brave officer or security guard or whatever who confronted him, but there were no shots fired.
Right, that did
then
seem weird.
How did he confront him? Hey, stop. I was literally gonna come on the air before he confessed to lying and ask, did he let him into school? Because what do you mean, was the confrontation just verbal? And oh, you have a gun, you'd like to murder kids? Okay, then screw it, I'll get out of your way, you go in. No, it was a fiction. There was nobody there. They didn't show up for 12 minutes. They're lying about almost every part of it. In fact, that same guy says now, when reporters started asking him questions at a press conference, he's like, whoa. No, we're still collecting information, so we can't tell you. Collecting information, it's been 2 days. No, you're not collecting information. You're all getting together and trying to figure out, how can we lie our way out of this?
Yeah, what's our story?
What is the most effective lie we can tell so they don't all find out that we're cowards and we let their kids die? So that's exactly what the cops are doing right now. And everyone watching knows that. So I'm done with, and you should be done with, any politician, including Democrats. By the way, Biden's gonna go down to Texas. I bet he kisses cops' asses when he goes down
100%.
there. Oh, the great cops. And nobody in the White House is smart enough to know, hey, don't applaud the cops when they're the ones who didn't do a goddamn thing. But the Democrats will kiss their ass too. And of course, Republicans love that they did nothing. They're gonna collect more money from the gun lobby after this. And don't believe anybody in the media who constantly tells you cops are so brave, cops are so great. No, they're the powerful. The cops protect the powerful and property. They obviously don't protect our kids. They obviously have no interest in that. And I want to say one last thing about his lies there. And he said, oh, then we came in and we confronted him and we killed the assailant. Did you? Because now there's a story out that he might have committed suicide.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
Okay, so I don't know which one of those two things
We don't know what's true. We got to be honest with you guys, but the stories keep changing. And so as we continue covering this, I just want you guys to understand, we are not trying to be deceptive. We want to tell you guys the facts of the story as we do with every other story. But the story keeps changing and we don't know what the truth is. We don't know if the cops gunned him down or if he shot himself. The narrative keeps changing and it's incredibly frustrating, and you're right, Cenk, incredibly insulting to the children who were murdered that day. I mean, can you imagine being a parent and hearing these cops like trying to cover for themselves? All right, we gotta take a break. Let's do that. When we come back, we're gonna talk about the victims. It's gonna be a difficult story, so brace for impact, as Cenk would say. And when we come back, we'll share that story and more.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and Dave. Dave, I just joined by hitting the join button below. Guys, got to stick together. We're the only ones that have the courage to tell you things as they are. You know, on MSNBC today, Katie Tur heard one of these horrific stories and she whispered, Jesus. And that made a news headline. That was like, oh wow, robotic news anchor shows emotion for a fraction of a second. Ooh, no.
It's weird that got any attention. I've seen anchors crying a lot today and yesterday.
Yeah, crying is like, it's not,
Yeah.
It's safe, right? But Jesus indicates like she might be aggrieved about what happened. And you cannot be aggrieved about anyone in power. You must bow your head to the cops and the politicians. You can't go around whispering, Jesus. No. Support the status quo, Katie. Otherwise you'll be in trouble. That was like a dramatic thing for the news actors. All right, let's give you more.
All right, let's get to our next story.
I'm a med aide, so when I arrived on the scene, they still had kids inside. They started bringing the kids out, and I was aiding assistants. One little girl was just covered in blood, head to toe. Like, I thought she was injured. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she's okay. She was hysterical, saying that they shot her best friend, that they killed her best friend, and she's not breathing, and that she was trying to call the cops. And I asked the little girl the name, and she told me, she said Amory.
That's how you learn.
That was Angel Garza, whose 10-year-old daughter was shot and killed during the shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. He shares more about his daughter in the next clip, and it is difficult to watch, so I want to give you that warning. But this is the reality that so many parents in America have either already faced or are terrified to face in the future.
She was so sweet, Mr. Cooper. She was the sweetest little girl who did nothing wrong. She listened to her mom and dad. She always brushed her teeth. She was creative. She made things for us. She never got in trouble in school. Like, I just want to know what she did to be a victim. She just tried to call the police.
She actually tried to call.
Yes, I got confirmation from 2 of the students in her classroom that she was just trying to call the authorities. And I guess he just shot her. How do you look at this girl and shoot her? Oh, my baby, how do you shoot my baby?
The first time I watched that, I started crying when he said, she brushes her teeth. She does her homework. She didn't do anything wrong. Why was she killed? Every politician watching that thinks, don't care. I'm not gonna do anything.
The Senate's on recess right now.
They went on effing vacation. They went on vacation. Schumer proudly declared the next day, we are not going to vote on any gun control because he's afraid of the Republicans. The Republicans look at that and go, who cares?
It's not my kids.
And by the way, if you're one of these right wingers who say no gun control, right? You know what you're saying? You're saying your guns are more important than our kids. By the way, you're also saying your guns are more important than your kids. You value your guns more than your own kids? You monsters. You are. Look at that dad. Look at that poor little girl. Why did that happen? Every country has the same amount of mental health issues. Every country. No other country murders its own kids. There are no mass shootings in schools in any other country. The mainstream media creates an illusion that covers the whole country as if like we do everything the best. No, there are some things we literally do the worst.
A lot of things we do the worst.
We have a mass insanity in this country where we go, oh, dead, murdered children all over the streets. Oh, at least we have our guns.
Yep.
The other countries do gun control. So this guy who killed everybody, he's 18. He can't buy a beer, but he could buy an AR-15 and murder your kids. And everybody thinks that's normal, and not a single politician is gonna do anything about it. You say, well, hey, Cenk, that's not fair. A lot of the Democrats do want to do something.
They don't.
Wait. Do they? Because they just went on vacation.
That's right.
They just went on vacation, and they explicitly promised our beloved Republicans, we promise that we won't do gun control. And you know what Schumer says? Oh, just elect more Democrats. Why? What good would it do? You just have more Democrats who would lie at the feet of the Republicans and lick their goddamn boots while our kids are murdered, okay? That's on all of the, you see that little girl? All the politicians who took money from the NRA and anti-gun control groups, they all led to her death. They all led to her murder. They don't like it, I don't give a goddamn that they don't like it. I don't like that that poor little girl is dead and her father is heartbroken. And we're all heartbroken, except the heartless politicians who take nonstop bribes. Ted Cruz has taken over $440,000 in bribes, and he watches that little girl die, and he doesn't give a damn. You know what he thinks? Oh, good, this will get me more money. This is a big controversy. The anti-gun control groups, basically the gun manufacturers who make profit off of this, will have to bribe me more. That's who these monsters are.
A few years ago, there was a fundraiser for an organization that's trying to do something to change our gun laws, do something to help the families who have already been victimized by the fecklessness and the greed and corruption of our politicians who allow this to continue happening over and over again. The fundraiser was called the Sandy Hook Promise. And when I came across this, I had seen it earlier when it had first come out. But when Garza was talking about his daughter trying to call the cops or to call for help, it reminded me of this ad that they put out to help with their fundraising efforts. It's difficult to watch, but it helps you visualize what it's like to be a child who's dealing with this circumstance. Let's watch.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver. I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
So that actually happens in our schools. That actually happens. And monsters, not just politicians, but gun rights freaks in this country who go, yeah, I don't mind as long as I get to have my gun.
And regulate women's bodies.
Yeah, I don't mind all those kids being killed. I have a hobby, I have my rights. So what do you need an AR-15 for? I don't care, I like it, I get off on it. So if your kids are murdered, I don't care. My wife and I had a discussion after the shooting about whether we should buy bulletproof vests for our kids. Everyone in school is now, all the parents are discussing, okay, how do we teach the kids to barricade themselves? How do we teach them to try to defend themselves against the shooter? The lunatic Republicans are talking about locking down the whole schools and making sure that nobody can get in or out. Oh, by the way, then coward cops will be even more reluctant to go in. And we're all having insane conversations because our politicians won't do anything. So 88% of Americans want federal background checks, but we don't have a democracy. It doesn't matter. 67% want assault rifles banned. That is 2/3 of the country. In a democracy, that shouldn't even be a question. But we don't have a democracy. Instead, the NRA and other groups have spent $190 million lobbying over the last couple of decades and $50 million in direct bribes to politicians. All those politicians are drenched in our children's blood. If they don't like it, they should change their goddamn policies. But no, they will do absolutely nothing, and scenes like you just saw will happen in a school near you. And for the people who died and the kids who died, it's already too late, and there'll be more dead. But on top of that, everyone is terrorized. We're all scared to death for what's gonna happen to our kids. Our kids are scared to death of going to schools. There is no other country that allows this. We are the only ones who allow it because our politicians are the sickest people on earth. They are selected by donors to be the least moral people in the country. Hey, I will give you bribes to burn down the planet. I will give you bribes so you make sure that drug prices are high and people die. I will give you bribes so that you can make sure that we do no gun control so that children can be massacred in schools. And every son of a bitch Republican said, I would love to take those bribes. I would love it, and I don't mind all of your kids dying. And the Democrats, some of them took the bribes, and the ones that didn't were like, oh, our Republican colleagues and the goddamn filibuster and the goddamn parliamentarian are more important to your kids. We're all cowards, so we're gonna lay down. Jonathan Larson, our reporter, managing editor at TYT Investigates, made a great point. Congressional Democrats are like the coward cops in front of the school. They just won't go in. They just won't go in.
Yeah.
The Republicans let our children get butchered every day, and the congressional Democrats say, there's nothing we can do. You goddamn cowards, there's a lot you can do, and you're choosing not to do it. You're on goddamn vacation right now. Screw all the politicians. Vote every incumbent out. They're all the most corrupt people in the country, and don't ever listen to a reporter telling you to respect politicians.
All right, we gotta take another break. Let's do it. Let's take a break, we'll be back.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and Genna Salazar, they just joined. All right, more stories.
Let's get to Ted Cruz still being a clown.
Why you do not think that guns are the problem?
Why is this just an American problem?
Well, it is just an American problem, sir.
Mr. Cruz, why is America the only country that faces this kind of mass shooting?
But you can't answer that. You can't answer that, can you, sir? You can't answer that. Why is this country?
Why is it that people come from all over the world to America? Because it's the freest, most prosperous, safest country on earth.
It may be the freest, it may be the most popular.
That was Ted Cruz. It's rare that he gets confronted by journalists who ask tough questions. But as you can see, he was running away because it's difficult to answer questions that call out the fecklessness and the greed and the selfishness of our elected lawmakers. By the way, Ted Cruz enjoying his Memorial Day weekend as the family members of the 19 children who were gunned down in Uvalde, Texas are currently grieving. 2 teachers were also gunned down in that mass shooting as well. Now, before we look at the rest of that exchange, I wanna really emphasize the disconnect between what you just saw and how the American people really feel about gun laws in this country. So this is a new poll that was done by Morning Consult and Politico, and they found that 73% of Americans strongly support requiring background checks on all gun sales, and another 15% somewhat support the measure. So I mean, look, we live in a country that is deeply divided on almost every culture-related issue. This is a culture-related issue, and there isn't much disagreement. Background checks, the bare minimum. There is widespread agreement. Let's give you more. 53% strongly support an assault weapons ban, meaning the majority of Americans support an assault weapons ban, while another 14% somewhat support such a law. Just 25% either strongly or somewhat oppose a ban on assault weapons. And also the survey showed near universal support for the prevention of gun sales to people who have been reported as dangerous to law enforcement by a mental health provider. In all, 84% either strongly or somewhat back that restriction. And it doesn't matter because Ted Cruz, he's not interested in representing them. He's interested in representing the people who fatten up his disgusting pockets. Let's watch.
There are 19 sets of parents who are never going to get to kiss their child goodnight again.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
it's easy to go to politics.
But it's important. It's at the heart of the issue.
I get that that's where the media likes to go.
No, it's not. It's where many of the people we've talked to here like to go.
The proposals from Democrats in the media, inevitably, when some violent psychopath murders people.
A violent psychopath who's able to get a weapon so easily. 18-year-old with 2 AR-15s.
If you want to stop violent crime, the proposals the Democrats have, none of them would have stopped this.
But why does this only happen in your country? I really think that's what many people around the world they cannot fathom. Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism so awful?
I'm sorry you think American exceptionalism is awful.
I think this aspect of it.
You've got your political agenda.
No, it's honestly,
God love you.
Senator, it's not. I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an American problem?
It is just an American problem, sir.
Now, of course, he runs away because those are tough questions to answer. And there's that disconnect, Cenk, the reality and then what his donors want him to do and say. So
our entire mainstream media is set up to protect the powerful. So the minute you see an international reporter, it breaks the illusion. You're like, wait, why doesn't a single reporter in America ask perfectly logical questions in a way that challenges politicians? That's what reporters are supposed to do. Challenge politicians on all sides with tough questions. And by the way, this is not even that tough. It's the most elementary question. No other country has gun violence like this. No other country allows the massacre of their children. None, zero. We're the only ones that do. So it's like the most obvious question in the world. And he's like, how dare you ask that question? Because it is his assumption that the media is supposed to help him, not challenge him.
Exactly.
And to be fair to Ted Cruz, he's right. Every reporter in America just gives him what helps him. They do propaganda on his behalf. When we say things like, hey, they're monsters for taking money from the gun lobby, reporters jump in, media jumps in, hey, you're not allowed to talk about money in politics. And they ridiculously say, oh, that's just a process thing, no one cares. Seems like a lot of people care. A lot of people care, except reporters in America. None of them are reporters. They're all just marketing flags for corporate rule. Okay, so now let me talk about the absurdity of what we have here. So no other country allows you to buy assault rifles. Not only do we allow children to buy it. So he could buy it at the age of 18, but he cannot buy a beer at the age of 18. He has to wait till he's 21. You know that you can't rent a car in America unless you're 26? But you could buy an AR-15 and murder 19 kids. How does that make any sense at all? It does actually, you know why? Because the car rental agencies just have realized that they make less money because of the accidents that people under 26 cause. So they tell politicians, do not allow them to rent our cars because it would cost us a nickel. Go dogs, fetch. And they go, like Ted Cruz does, and then he goes and fetches. And they say, but the gun manufacturers make more money if we allow anyone to buy guns, including really young children, because then everybody gets worried and then they buy guns. So hey, Ted Cruz, go and tell them a car is too dangerous for a 25-year-old, but an AR-15 is perfectly safe for an 18-year-old. And he does as he is told. You wanna know how much money Ted Cruz took from the gun lobby? $442,000.
Yep, we have a graphic showing that he is the top recipient of donations from the gun lobby. So there it is, he's at the top of the list with $442,000. Then you have Steve Scalise coming in at number 2, $396,000. And the list goes on and on. John Cornyn, $340,000. No, look, in a neoliberal system, the government does work. It works on behalf of corporate interests. Profits over people, profits over people, profits over people, profits over people. It's the case that Cenk laid out perfectly when it comes to why there's an age requirement for being able to rent a car. It has to do with profit. And that's certainly the case when it comes to this insane weaponry, including assault weapons. But no, look, I've been told, Cenk, that young kids, especially young kids living in rural parts of the country, they need guns because they go hunting with their dad, right? So they need an AR-15. They need high capacity magazines because if you come across that deer, you want to make sure you use an assault weapon for it, right? Yeah. And you want to make sure you got that high capacity magazine. Are you guys not tired of being lied to over and over again? And are you not sick to your stomach about the fact that the NRA didn't even have the decency, didn't even care to at least postpone their conference in Texas? They're still gonna have their conference this weekend in Houston.
Right now, Greg Abbott, Ted Cruz, and Donald Trump are set to attend. You know why? Because they got to go collect checks. So now let me tell you about the checks. In the last couple of decades, they have spent $190 million on lobbying, the gun lobby. Now, people who are against guns, in favor of gun control, are also spending money, but it's just their own money. They don't make profit off of it because they're not gun manufacturers. So they only spent $30 million. So they were massively outspent. Because every dollar that the gun manufacturers put into the pockets of people like Ted Cruz, they make $2 or $3 back. So it's a good return on investment to buy a soulless coward like Ted Cruz. He'll do anything for money. I mean, you could even insult his wife. They probably do. They probably call his wife ugly and say, now, bitch, go out there and do as we tell you. And Ted Cruz probably does it. Now, you don't know that because mainstream media reporters are corrupt and the worst people on earth as they aid and abet the system. You notice how Steve Scalise is number 2 on that list? Why did they give him so much money? He's not even a senator. That's because he was shot. So it's good propaganda to wheel out a politician who was shot and go, oh, even though I was shot and I almost died, I still love guns. Did I get the money? Did I do my job right? They have no souls. Politicians, especially Republicans, are the most immoral people in the country. Flat out, it's not hyperbole. They're the most evil, immoral people in the country. Why won't you cover $50 million directly into their campaigns? $50 million since 1989 from the gun lobby.
Yep.
And hey, did the mainstream press ever report that? Did they tell you all the time? Hey, these sons of bitches take money from the gun lobby? No, they said nobody's interested. Shut up, you propagandists. You're all liars. All right, last thing. If it's true that, and it is true, that 88% of Americans want federal background checks, and 67% want to ban assault rifles, and there is a 0% chance that either of that is going to pass Congress. Do we actually live in a democracy?
No, we do not live in a democracy. Do not make the mistake of regurgitating the BS we were fed in our history classes in middle school and high school. We don't live in a democracy. We didn't live in a democracy then, and it's only deteriorated further in recent years. It's not a democracy when we're governed by corporate rule. When our voices, our votes, all of that stuff doesn't even matter. Sure, you might do all the groundwork, you might do all the canvassing, you might succeed in electing the people you like into office, but they will abandon you, as we have seen happen time and time again. We don't live in a democracy because we have a virus that's built into the system. Legalized bribery, corruption, it's part of the system. And at this point, by the way, I mean, we're focusing on Congress and they deserve the ire that's directed toward them right now. But let me also just note, even if miraculously Congress succeeds in passing the legislation we need, common sense gun reform, you know what the Supreme Court's gonna do? Supreme Court will strike it down. I mean, I've said this before, I'll say it again. As we speak, the Supreme Court is working on expanding gun rights in the country. And rights is a weird way of putting it, gun access. So if you live in a state that doesn't allow concealed carry, get ready, because the Supreme Court is about to allow concealed carry everywhere in the country.
And Texas right now is deregulating guns, making it easier to access guns.
You don't need a permit.
Yeah, because you know why? Not enough kids have been murdered to appease Greg Abbott. Look, Greg Abbott and Ted Cruz might as well have been there helping the shooter. They couldn't have helped him any more than loosening gun restrictions, which allowed him to buy that weapon of mass destruction and kill all of our kids. And they did it for money. How could none of the reporters at the national level report that? It's sickening. But to be fair to the Republicans, they are broken up about it. So I'll give you one last quote from Charlie Kirk, who he said about the shooting, it almost like ruins your day. Oh, it almost ruins your day. These people are actually evil. They're the height of immorality. And you should know that about the right wing and Republicans. And we shouldn't mince words. They're getting our kids killed.
All right, let's get to our next story.
There are lots of short things that we can do and we must do, and we've done a lot in Texas, but obviously we must do more.
Texas Lt Gov Dan Patrick is about to reveal a new GOP talking point to deflect from any real gun legislation. It's pathetic. Let's watch.
Harden schools. There should be one entrance in and one entrance out in all of our elementary and all of our middle schools. They're small enough to do that. There should be only one way in, and that should be a well-protected entrance in. We already have a program where we allow any teacher in school the district that wants to be armed. We train them. It's up to the schools. We leave that optional. We have metal detectors at schools if those schools make that decision, and we funded that. We put in $100 million. We put in mental health issues. But I go back to we can do all of these things.
And that is the narrative that is playing out because look, everything else that right wingers have been saying about preventing school shootings has been debunked. You have armed cops standing outside the school for an hour doing nothing. So the good guy with the gun narrative doesn't work. It's been debunked. What do you do next? Oh, I know. Let's create prison-like environments for our students. Let's create a fire hazard, so there's only one entrance and one exit into the school. That'll be great. So he puts the signal out there, and guess what? It's regurgitated by all the other coward Republicans in the country, including Ted Cruz. Let's watch.
You want to talk about how we could have prevented the horror that played out across the street? Look, the killer entered here the same way the killer entered in Santa Fe, through a back door, an unlocked back door. I sat down at round tables with the families from Santa Fe. We talked about what we need to do to harden schools, including not having unlocked back doors, including not having unlocked doors to classroom, having one door that goes in and out of the school, having armed police officers at that one door.
Let's also use some barbed wire and let's put the kids in handcuffs as they're entering the school to ensure that if they do have a gun, they won't be able to access it. I mean, you guys like this? All the Republicans who love watching the show because they hate watching us for some reason, you like this? Is this where you send your kids? Is this what you want? Is this the country you want to live in? How the hell does anyone defend this garbage? How? How does anyone, a ton of people who defend it have kids themselves. How do you see what's happening in the country and think that you're untouched by it? We're all sitting ducks. We live in a country with a bunch of cowardly cops that stand out there for an hour and don't do a damn thing. We have politicians who have created a sense of lawlessness in this country. I mean, do you think you're safe? Your kids will probably get shot up. Are you gonna be spouting the same garbage talking points? I don't have kids, okay? And I see this, I see what's happening in the country. It blows my mind that there are parents who have young kids who still think, no man, no Second Amendment, all of our other rights have limitations, but when it comes to guns, no limitations whatsoever. You guys make me embarrassed to be an American. And then they want to turn around and tell women, oh, we care about babies. We care about babies. So we're gonna go ahead and decide what you can and can't do with your own body because we allegedly care about babies. You don't care about a damn thing. And I'm so disgusted with our lawmakers for being so craven and so concerned with their own goddamn financial health that they turn their backs on us, watch children die in cold blood, and then go on vacation. Memorial Day weekend, time to get together with the family, have a barbecue, and not think about the families who just lost their kids in another mass shooting in this country.
So now let's break down the terrible ideas of the Republicans. So if you jam the kids in a cave, there's only one way to get in. Everything else is locked down. They're in a maximum security prison, I mean school. And what if the shooter gets past the one security guard? Then it'll be near impossible for the cops to go in, especially because they're cowards. And they'll say, well, it could hurt me. I don't want to, I mean, your kids are dying. That's not my problem, especially if they're poor or brown. So they'll use it as an excuse to not go into school. Because once you get past that one door, it's super easy to barricade it, as this guy did, with a door inside the school. Then they'll use that as an excuse. It's the world's worst idea, let alone the fact that we're sending our kids to like concentration camps because the right-wingers have to have their guns. Guys, it's very literal. They're telling you, we care more about our guns than we care about your kids' lives. We would rather have hundreds of kids murdered throughout the year with assault weapons than lose our hobby. Because it's not for hunting, it's not for self-defense. An assault rifle is so some right-wing jackoff can go into the woods and be like, yo, like you think he's Rambo, and get off on it. And he knows that it kills the kids, he doesn't care. Look, a lot of the right-wing are sociopaths. So if you told them, look, no other country has these kind of mass shootings because they don't allow assault rifles. We're the only ones that allow assault rifles, and our kids are butchered on a daily basis. They will tell you, I don't care. I'd rather have my gun than your kid. That's a fact that you can't say, well, no, just as many kids would die if we passed a ban on assault rifles, ban on the amount of ammunition that you could put in, not more than 10. If we did a federal background checks, if we actually did said, hey, if you're on the terrorist list or you've got a mental health issue that was reported to the authorities, you can't have a gun. They're like, no, because they're all crazy. And so they think, and a lot of them are criminals themselves. Oh, well, look, in the past I did this and this, and I still want to have a gun. I still want to be able to murder things. And so, and the teachers, and you saw that monster say, well, we're arming the teachers in Texas. I've told you this before. That means they literally teach the teachers which of their students to kill, okay? Now, you say, why? A lot of the shooters are actually students in the school. This guy was not an active student in that school, but he's from that district. So he might have gone to that school earlier in his life. So you teach the teacher. Now remember, if Bobby comes in, he's probably a good guy, don't kill him. But if Johnny comes in, he's a little unstable, you might want to kill him before anything else happens. This is what we teach our teachers. And everyone pretends like it's normal. It's not at all normal. The rest of the world is looking at us like we're lunatics, and it's because we are. It's the root of the problem is money. Slime balls like Ted Cruz and Dan Patrick take money, and we've told you Ted Cruz has taken $440,000 from the gun lobby, and he says, well, as long as you're paying me, I don't mind dead kids. So Dan Patrick, Greg Abbott, and Ted Cruz, they couldn't have helped that shooter anymore if they were on the scene and had opened the door for him.
We got to take a break. When we come back, we've got more stories to get to, including perfect combination, endless gun violence and primetime cable news hosts like Tucker Carlson calling for civil war. Perfect combination. Come right back.
God bless you.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.